All right, this segment has to do with how the American worker has been fucked. Yeah, I said it, fucked. The Republicans and Democrats alike both pander to big money, uh, political campaign contributions, and under the cover lining of their pockets. There is not one person in Congress, either the House of Representatives or the Senate, that is not a millionaire. Okay? Not a millionaire. Now, you have some honest people that are millionaires in their own rights, and then you have some dishonest people that are taking campaign contributions and various other things under the table, but they normally come out of Congress a lot richer than when they walk into Congress. And there's a reason for that. These trade deals that they have signed, and this was even before Clinton, but Clinton basically, when he jumped NAFTA in there and then expanded it out to Europe and to Southeast Asia, and when it got expanded into China, basically they were telling the American worker to kiss their asses. Now, this particular segment has to do with the steel industry in Lorain, Ohio, and basically Lorain, Ohio has no steel industry. For those of you who are not aware of it, the United States was the #1 producer of steel for a long time. But then as our industries started getting attacked, and you know what I'm talking about, do we make any TVs in the United States? The textile industry is basically non-existent. It all comes from overseas. Basically, we're being held afloat because of our consumption and our agricultural industries. Now, there are a lot of other industries, service industries, banking, etc., that kick a lot in. But most of our manufacturing is gone. It's over in China. Why is that? Because they can charge the same prices for products where the cost, because of labor and because of technology, let's just be fair, technology as well, has reduced the production costs, and it's cheaper to produce something, throw it in containers on a boat, ship it over here, 6 weeks later, it's being distributed and on shelves. But the steel industry is a completely different story. The steel industry came under attack from China, from Vietnam, and the surrounding countries. Now, making steel is making steel. Okay, there are different qualities of steel, and the quality of U.S. steel has been known as the best in the world. But again, steel is basically pretty much steel. So the countries over there decided that they wanted to get into the steel business. All right, so what happened? They started producing a steel, and the cost was pretty much the same. So why would we import steel when we have our own steel industry here? Well, the major factor as far as importing steel would be price. Now, if the price is the same, obviously you're going to stick with a local supplier, #1 because of time. You can basically place your order and have it produced and delivered in let's say right under 4 weeks locally. If you're going to place an order overseas, you're basically talking about that same 4 weeks plus another 6 weeks in order to get it shipped So that's about 10 weeks. Less inventory on hand as far as steel is concerned means a greater profit margin. So what did the foreign steel producers do? Their governments came in and subsidized their production. They basically zeroed out any cost that would have been greater than our cost, and then further cut the price of foreign steel in order to make it financially viable for someone to order steel from overseas and wait the 10 weeks in order to get it, and still make it more profitable than buying domestically produced steel. Well, the first country that did that was China. And there are certain rules regarding international trade, and China violated every last single one of them. What happens at that point? The steel producers here complain. The US government has to take China to sue them in the World Court. And I will tell you, it takes a minimum of 2 years in order to bring a lawsuit in the World Court and to hopefully get a fast judgment. Okay, as soon as that happens, okay, and a judgment is rendered stopping China from exporting steel directly to the United States, what does China do? China exports the steel to South Korea. South Korea then exports the steel to the United States. Okay, the process starts all over again. So now we're talking about another 2 years of lawsuits against South Korea. What happens then? China then stops exporting the steel to South Korea because South Korea can't ship it over here, and then they export it to Vietnam. Vietnam does the same thing, another 3 years. So by the time you get through and they continue to play the shell game, the steel manufacturers basically are out of business, and that's exactly what happened in Lorain, Ohio. They won every single lawsuit was won by the United States government, but meanwhile these people had to survive, and they couldn't because they were unable to sell their products because of the unfair practices of the international marketplace, i.e. China and the various countries that colluded with China. So I'm all for tariffs. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm all for tariffs. When you see crap like this that basically destroys U.S. industries, U.S. manufacturing, basically putting the middle class basically out of business, and no sunshine, no daylight for the poorer people to be able to get a hand up in anything other than a service industry. No, that's not working for me. So they talk about starting a trade war. Fine. The United States basically is a consumer nation. If we start producing again and buying our own stuff, number one, we put people to work. Number two, the tax revenues go up. And number three, it'll send a message to the world not to fuck with us. Anyway, let me play you this clip from the A.M. Joy show, where she has a small panel of former, well, actually one guy was still working U.S. Steel, but basically former steel workers that are basically unemployed in the city of Lorain, Ohio, and what it did to that city.
I wanted to spend my time here in Ohio hearing what voters are thinking about the upcoming election. So I traveled to the steel town of Lorain, Ohio earlier this week and asked some locals what matters to them in this election. Their answers may surprise you. In the 1970s, Lorain, Ohio, 30 miles from Cleveland, was a boom town. The major plant in town assembled Ford Econoline vans, the Ford Thunderbird, and the Mercury Cougar, creating thousands of good-paying, blue-collar jobs. Even after the Ford plant closed in 2005, the town was anchored by two big steel plants, U.S. Steel and Republic Steel, that have been around since the 1890s. But all that has changed. So I want to start out by asking you guys to raise your hand if you work or have ever worked at U.S. Steel. All right, unanimous. Now raise your hand if you've ever worked or work at Republic Steel. All right, now I want you to raise your hand if you still work at either of those places. There's one guy. Lee Simons was recently forced to retire when Republic Steel shut down operations in Lorain, shedding 200 jobs.
When I grew up, I thought it was a place that was going to be there forever. When I personally started in the plant, we had 300 people working.
We went from manufacturing to dollar stores.
Yeah.
That's the job to learn, dollar stores.
Driving through this town of 64,000 people, it's hard to miss the number of dollar stores.
At the height of it, Lorain was growing fast, and the future looked bright for them.
When we came to the American Legion Hall in Lorain and sat down with these 7 lifelong steelworkers, all of whom voted for Barack Obama in 2008, and 6 out of 7 of them voted for the president again in 2012, we asked them who they thought was to blame for the way things are today, 7 years after the auto bailout that saved Detroit and that was supposed to help steel towns like Lorain. Many blame NAFTA and other free trade deals for the plant closures, but Tim Blake, a third-generation steelworker forced to retire from Republic Steel after 35 years, said the slide began well before the 1994 trade pact with Mexico and Canada.
I wrote a song in 1982, and I recently just put it back out there, and 34 years later, exactly the same thing happened.
Because they're shutting down our factories, bringing steel from overseas, and turn their back on this hard-working town.
You know, when we were working in the mill at Clinton, when President Clinton was in office, you know, guys were working. And so we would support him, even though you may not agree with NAFTA, we were working. But then you slowly started seeing the jobs disappear. And then it starts to trickle down effect, and it keeps going on. And now it continues, and now, like you said, the TPP, and there's nothing left of us. There is no steel manufacturing being done in Lorain at all.
And I guess that I was born with Ortho steel.
And we'll hear more from these Ohio voters in our...
Yeah, so anyway, and that's basically what happens. You get these foreign countries that target specific industries, then their governments turn around and help their people, and a lot of the times it's the government themselves that actually are getting into the business. They turn around and subsidize the businesses so that they can become competitive. Now, one thing that I learned, and I really enjoy my relationships with people from Asia, but the one thing that I learned from them is you never think short-sighted. You don't think about this year or this month or this week. And America has gotten into a bad habit of having to have everything and have it right now. America does not look to the future. And that's the one thing that people that I dealt with from Asia always said. They said they do not look at what's going to happen this year as far as a business is concerned. They're not concerned about next year. At the minimum, they are always looking to see where they will be and where they are trying to get to, with a goal of at least 10 years down the road at a minimum. And more often than not, they're looking 20 years down the road. So they don't care about immediate short back. They don't care if things aren't going well today. As long as they have a plan and they can see that that plan can go forward so that they will be ahead 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. Now, that calls for governmental help in major industries where they subsidize their industries to the point that they basically drive the other industries in America out of business, and then they are able to recoup whatever losses that they incurred over the 10-year period of time. We need to think like that. We need to get in there and, with government help, get our industries back. We need to start making TVs here. We need to tell Ford and GM and everybody else, if you want to put plants in Mexico, guess what? You are going to have to pay a price for that. And honestly, I would throw such a huge tariff on GM for that plant that they're building in Mexico that it would be financially irresponsible for them to build cars to ship into the United States. Or, real simple, if they want to build a plant in Mexico, fine, you can build a plant and you can ship all of the cars you want, just don't ship them here. You have to think about buying America first, and you have to think about the American worker. And these guys, all they're interested in is the bottom line profits. And in my opinion, they have a social responsibility, because they wouldn't have gotten to where they are without the help of the United States government, and more specifically, the American worker. The American worker made these guys what they are, and the American people buying their products made them what they are. So they need to give back, i.e., cut it out, keep our industries here. It's time for us to start targeting the overseas industries in places like China and Japan, and let them fend for themselves.